However, welcome to another session of my Nextflow tutorials. In this video, I'm going to show you how to write a Nextflow script that accepts command line arguments. All right. So basically, we refer to that situation as what specifying parameters. All right. So that's what we have here. So let's get started. So before we start, let's even go to this page. Okay, so this page tells you more about parameters. All right, so if you want to read more, just visit this page. I'll leave the link to this page in the description box. So let's get back to the terminal. So we are going to do something like this. Okay, we are going to write a script where, for example, you can say Nextflow run. We give the script, and we can say dash dash. Let's say text, or let's say greeting, and say hello. Right. So in this case, what is happening is that we are specifying a command line argument, that is hello, which is also a parameter, right? So the parameter is this one, greeting, that's a label. Okay, so whenever we make reference to greeting, it is this text that will come up. So it's something simple like that we are going to do. Okay, and we are going to see whether we can transfer that knowledge to also process some files. All right, so it's very simple. So just stay tuned and then let's go. Okay, so you need to make sure you have a Nextflow software installed. You need to have it installed, and it should also run Linux. Okay, so taking some of that. So those are the requirements. You don't need any special software. We are keeping it simple, so these requirements will do fine for you. So let's proceed. All right. So on the terminal, what I will do first is to create my directory in my project directory. So that I will say make the Nextflow, and then I'll cd into it. All right, so if you have been watching my videos, you realize that if I'm going to perform a task or let's say a project, I always create a working direction and I work in it. Okay, so this allows me to it basically prevents the accidental modification of files which are already on my system. So I always prefer to work in specific folders or directories. So that is why you see me doing this often. Okay, now let's proceed. So we will start. So we are going to write a simple script. Let's just look at this example. I think we will just modify this here. We will write a simple script that will accept a text, okay, like hello world or something like that, and then we just process it basically in the Nextflow script itself. Okay, so we write a script that will accept a text, for example, a greeting, and then we will write this text into a file. Okay, and then we will view that file. So basically that's what we are going to do. So that's it. So let's start. We are going to write a script. So I'll use nano, and then I'll say script.nf. That's what we are going to use. So we are opening a new file, and then we will put in our commands. Okay. And by the way, I'm using nano, but you can use any text editor for that matter. Okay. So I'm keeping it simple here. So we will do this. I'll just say process. Okay. Right, or let's say save text. Let me just use this one here, text. Okay, so process, and then I'll just place in my information. So I'll just say input. Okay, I'll just say val. I'll say text, or you can even say greeting. Let's even use greeting like this. So here there's a kind of data type, and then the reference or the label, okay, it's greeting. So whenever you make reference to greeting, or you can even say text, okay, let's just, for now, let's just say text. I think this would be much simpler for us. Okay, so if I have this defining what data type we are supplying, okay, as inputs. Okay, so whenever I make reference of text, okay, then it is the word that we actually specified that will be available for Nextflow to process. All right. Okay. Now let's define output. So I'll just use path. Just like this. So double quote star double quote. Right. And the script itself. Okay. You can have something like this. Okay. So the script 3 single quotes up and down, and in between we'll put in our text. Okay, so that's what we are going to do with this exercise. This part of the exercise, we are going to just write that text to a file. Okay, so I'll say echo dollar text, and I'll say output.txt. Okay, so this text that we are going to supply, we will place it in a file which is called output.txt. That's what we are basically going to do. Okay, so that's for the process. And now we come to where you indicate our inputs, okay, our parameter, our command line argument, what we supply a terminal. Okay, but we will need to also define a workflow first. So I'll say workflow, and then I have my curly brackets with that. So then you will do this. It's also important to know what label you are giving to your inputs. Okay, let's just come back here. Okay, what label you are giving to your inputs. Okay, so here we have something like this. Let's see, it says params.greeting. Okay, so what happens is that when we are supplying the input on the terminal, okay, then what happens is that it's automatically tagged to params. So we have params.greeting here, for example. That means that we specify greeting on the command line, and then we give the inputs, the text that's supposed to be there. Okay, but don't worry, I'm going to explain everything. We are going to go through everything, but it's important for you to understand some of these words that I'm using. Of course, they are all here, but it's just for you to get warmed up, and then you look at the other stuff. Okay, so that's parameters. Okay, so parameters, Nextflow, the Nextflow document defines them as pipeline specific settings. Of course, they are settings if you look at it in that way. Okay, so all that we do is to come back here. Okay, so in this case, what we are doing, we are going to supply inputs. So we need to get a channel. So channel, I'll say text underscore ch equals channel dot off. And then this is where we supply the command line arguments. Okay, so this is where the parameters come in. So we need to also know this. I've already made mention of it, but I'm going to talk about it again. We need to know the label we are giving. We need to know the tag. Okay, I'll put it that way. Okay, that we are using as reference. Okay, so if I say params dot text, that means that on the terminal, let me open this one here. If you call the Nextflow script, we have to say dash dash text, and then we supply the information. Let's say a word, or let's see next, or let's see hello world. Okay, so this text here in Nextflow, we have to reference, or we have to refer to it as params.text. This dash dash text here, you say params.text, and that is what we are indicating here. So params.text here means that on the terminal, whenever you are calling Nextflow and you are specifying that information, you have to use dash dash text. Okay, if you say dash dash, let's say TT, then it will not work because here the name you give it is different. So whatever you give in the Nextflow script itself should be the same as what you specify on the terminal. Okay, but indicate the dash dash also. So it's going to be something like this. Okay, anyway, let's clean it. You will look at that later on. Okay, so I give this, that means that I'm going to indicate dash dash text, and then the value of that is what will be made available. All right, and then you will just say save texts. You say texts underscore ch. Okay, so it becomes this simple. It's very, very simple. Okay, this is how it is. Now let's exit and save changes. And then let's do an edit just to confirm our scripts. And now we are going to run the scripts, and I'll show you how we supply the parameters, okay, or how we supply the command line arguments. Okay. So I will just say Nextflow run. I specify the script and I'll say dash dash text, and then I give my value, okay, or my text. I'll just say hello. So let's run the script. So now if you run it, what is going to happen is that it's going to be processed, okay? And if you do an ls now, we should see a directory called work, which is the default, by the way. So this has the output file, okay? Anyway, we'll modify it, okay? But now if we do an ls into work, you see 35, that's the directory which is having the output. So if I ls into work / 35, I get another directory and I have to ls into it to see the file which is here. Okay. Now I'm just going to do a cut and paste here. I'll just say cut. I'll apply the path / output.text. I'm going to see my hello in here. Okay, because we did what? We supplied this. Let me just open the scripts here. We gave it as params or text. We got it here into a channel and then we supplied it to this process here. That is what we now have here. Okay, that's what we need to know. I'll go over again, but then this time let's do this. With Nextflow, the default setting is that it will create a directory called work and then it will place in the output files. But this can be problematic, especially if you have lots of projects. You have run Nextflow multiple times, then you have several directories in this one, and it can be almost I'm trying to get your output file. So we are going to edit the script and add a custom directory, okay, to it. I've already covered an entire section, an entire video which shows different approaches you can use to specify custom directories to save your outputs. But this tutorial will keep it very simple. We'll just try one of those approaches. But if you want that full tutorial, just check the description box. The download link is there. Okay, now let's modify the script. Okay, I think it was open somewhere here. Let me just do this. I'll have to redo it again. I'll have to stop it here. Yeah, let's do it. Let's edit the script. And then let's put our publish dar command. And let's say outputs. This should be fine. We'll keep it simple like this. All right. I'll edit and save changes. Okay. So now I can run the script again. I will do this. Nextflow run. Script as end of the text. And then I'll say hello again. This time let me say hello world. Let's run it. Now if I run it, I'll get an output. Okay, and this time the output, let's check. Unless you see it here, let's into output, you'll find a text. I can say cat output / output.ts. I'll see my hello world. Okay, so this is what parameters. Okay, we are specifying command line argument. It's very, very simple. Now let's do this. If you look at the scripts, I think I'll use this one here. If you look at the scripts that we have, all right, we use a channel here and then we supply that information to this process. Okay. But it's possible to directly access the parameters. Okay, it's possible to directly access that in your process without you having to create a channel to do that. Okay, there are situations where it's appropriate. There are also situations where it's not appropriate. All right. So, for example, if you know whatever you're going to supply, whatever you're going to access directly, whatever you're going to supply, which doesn't have to go through the channel system, is going to be correct. If you know whatever you're going to supply, it will be correct. It doesn't need any further verification. You can just access it directly. Okay, so it's possible to do that. So I'm going to show you how to supply a command line argument. And this time, we don't use the channel, but we will just access it directly in the process. Okay, so we will still maintain the script, we will modify it. All right, so I'll just make a copy of it first. I'll say cp script.nf, I'll say script 2.nf, and I'm going to modify this. All right, I'll say nano script 2.nf. So this time, this is what I'm going to do. We are going to add a second text. Okay, but this time I'll put it somewhere here. Okay, so if you want to access directly from the terminal without creating a channel, then you have to use the word params dot and you give the reference. Okay, so for example, let's say, let me just put it here. Let's say you are running the scripts, and then you want to give the text, which is or the greetings, whichever one you prefer it, and then you also want to give, let's say, hello. They want to give, let's say, another parameter or another arguments for the user's name. Let's say dash name, and I give my name, Bioinformatics. All right, then if you are referencing that in the script, it will become $params dot, and you give the name or the label. So here is going to be params dot name. I'll put it this way. Okay, so this time what I'm going to do with that, I'm going to add something else. Okay, so I'm going to place both parameters in this output file. Okay, so I'll say echo, and then I'll bring it here. I'll say $params.name like this. Okay, so that's how we are going to do it. So let's proceed. Okay, so we have the params.name here. So that's the only thing we are adding, okay, and nothing else. All right, so we will edit and save changes. Okay, so now we have two inputs we need to add on the terminal, this and then this. This one, okay, we'll create a channel and we use that to access it and it's applied to the process. This one, we are accessing it directly in the process. Okay, so let's edit and save changes. Let's clear the screen. Let's do an else again. Let's see some stuff here. Okay, so we are going to run the script. So I'll say Nextflow run script 2.nf. I say dash text. Let's say hi, or let's use hi this time. We can put it in quotes as well, that's fine. Let's say dash name. Let's say bioinformatics coach. Or let's say bioinfo coach like this. So let's execute this command. So once we do that, we know the output is going to be here. Okay, so if I do a cut, you'll see it's here. Okay, that's nice. And you should also take note that if the output file name is the same as what is existing, then it's going to replace it. All right, so you need to take note of that. So you should be careful of your outputs as well. Okay, so you should always make sure that you manage that basically. Okay, so try to make sure that whatever you are going to generate does not replace what is already on the system. Okay, so you should always try to monitor those things whenever you are doing an analysis. All right. Okay, so now we see that the change has been reflected here. So we have two parameters. One is the text, one is the name. And you can see all of them here. Okay, so the same principle, okay, that we use. So for example, if let's say you are writing a Nextflow script, okay, let's say it's a bioinformatics pipeline, let's say RNA-seq, for example, then you can write a script in such a way that the processing is done in stages. Okay, for example, you have a script for RNA-seq. You have to first perform, let's say, QC. You also have to perform mapping. You also have to generate the read count, etc. So you can have a Nextflow script that will do each of these separately, okay, for you. Okay, so all boils down to you supplying some information on the terminal that you can access internally and then use that to process the data. Okay, so these are things that we need to learn. All right, but if you also want some Nextflow pipelines, you want a custom one, you can also contact me. Can have a session and then we'll work on that. So you are welcome to contact me. Okay, so that is it. All right, so that's the end for this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next session.